Much for more on all this, let's bring in Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Earlier in the week, by the way, you had a tweet. I don't know what they call them anyway, since it's become X, but let's call it a tweet. You said, equal justice under the law has been replaced with show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Now, you know where that quote came from, that last quote, right?
Yeah, and I think that what we are seeing right now, David, this is obviously it's a political prosecution, but they've now crossed the Rubicon. This is a incredibly dangerous road to go down for our republic. The idea that one president is trying to throw his chief challenger, his chief political rival, in jail for the rest of his life. And, you heard the previous clip from Senator Ernst. There are two tiers of justice, but they're obsessed with Donald Trump. I mean, they're obsessed. And all the things that the left was hysterical about when he was elected in 2016, all the things he might do, which, of course, he didn't do any of those except give us a great economy and try to secure our border and all those things. Joe Biden's doing all of those, right? He's trying to jail a political opponent. He's censoring speech. And at the end of the day now, this is like stage 4 Trump derangement syndrome. It's nuts.
Well, the quote, for those who are curious, by the way, that second quote, show me the man and I'll show you the crime, came from Stalin's secret police chief. And I'm just wondering, do you really think that America, I mean, some people would say if we've gone that far down the road of politicizing justice system, we are in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm deeply concerned for the fate of the republic at this point. You have an administration that is engaged in a censorship enterprise that censored, millions of posts. I mean, this has been shown in court now. They're willing to go that far, and they're willing to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after political enemies. And it's not just Donald Trump. They've gone after parents who showed up to school board meetings. They've gone after Catholics. If you don't say what the regime's narrative is, they've got the Department of Justice now, which is essentially outside counsel for the Democrats. The Democrat National Party here. And and the other thing is, I'm hearing from so many people in Missouri, whether you voted for Donald Trump or you didn't vote for Donald Trump or you like him, you don't like him, this is really dangerous stuff. Mm-hmm. This is really dangerous because, there's going to be another Republican president. My hope it's next year when Donald Trump is elected. But, no matter what, once you break the seal on this stuff, it's really dangerous. It's the same reason when you talk about court packing. They want to pack the court. They want to go from 9 to 13. Well, why not 26?
Let's just drill down a little 50? On this indictment. Do you think that the White House is directly directing Jack Smith in his prosecution?
Well, it's been reported that Joe Biden has said in confidence that he thinks, President Trump is a quote-unquote threat to democracy and ought to, pay a price. And so the January 6th committee, David, was a total sham. If you look at the allegations in this indictment, it essentially mirrors the political accusations that were being made in the January 6th committee.
But, Senator, I really want to, before we get off on that tangent, I just want to ask specifically, do you think the White House is directing this prosecution?
I don't think you could see it any other way. The Department of Justice is doing Joe Biden's bidding. And Jack Smith is the guy that they wanted to put on this. He has a record of being a partisan.
Well, let's talk about his record. This is a political
prosecution.
He has a pretty checkered record. So let's start with former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. Bob McDonnell was prosecuted by Jack Smith. His prosecution was unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court, 0-9. There's no doubt that he overcharged in that particular case. Then when he was head of the Public Integrity Unit at the Department of Justice under President Obama, he actually helped Lois Lerner's IRS prosecution of conservatives, which of course was revealed and became a big scandal, and that was overturned. Do you think that his prosecution of Donald Trump, if he gets a conviction in the first case, do you think that will be overturned as well?
I do. I think this will ultimately head to the Supreme Court probably, but I think this should be thrown out. Now, whether that's going to happen in, by the way, the D.C. Circuit or in the the federal court there in Washington, D.C., or the D.C. Circuit. We'll see. But, I mean, these are charges. These are in political nature. There's a way to resolve these issues, which is we have elections. But what you're seeing now is a prosecution to try to take somebody who, you know, at least half the country supports, is going to be the nominee for the Republicans, in my view, to try to take them, you know, off the stage. Yeah. And that's just not something we do in this country. People have a right to vote for who they want to vote for. And no matter how much they can't stand Donald Trump. And by the way, I also think this helps President Trump politically because people see it for what it is. It's
now,
a political prosecution.
Concerning the dual justice, you talked a little bit about that. We had the revelation, not coincidentally, I don't think, this week from Devin Archer that contradicted a lot of what Democrats said he had said when we saw the actual transcript. Dealing with that, Joe Biden was the key reason why Hunter had the job, and he was leaned on for his support several times. What's going to become of that investigation, of the investigation of Hunter, and will it lead to an impeachment of Joe Biden?
Well, and by the way, before we get to that, also pointing out that Jack Smith, when he was there, was the same time frame when he was in DOJ there, was the same time frame that you had all these, you know, millions of dollars going to shell corporations to Hunter Biden. And Joe Biden's role in that, we need to find out what that is. We need to have open hearings in public because if the president of the United States, when he was vice president, was doing the bidding of foreign actors, that's unprecedented in this country. And the American people deserve to know. You've got Joe Biden on video just a few years ago bragging about withholding $1 billion worth of loan forgiveness to Ukraine after his son went on the Burisma board. They brought his son on to fix the local prosecutor problem. Joe Biden goes to Ukraine and says, we're withholding, these are his words, we're withholding the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor.
Yeah. And
I think the American people deserve to get answers here.
I mean, so to paraphrase what the president himself has said about that, but just very quickly, should there be an impeachment inquiry now? Do we have enough evidence to begin an impeachment inquiry?
Absolutely, there should be an inquiry. Whether you call it an inquiry or you call it an oversight hearing or process, whatever you want to call it, the American people deserve to know whether or not their president's a crook.
Senator, very quickly, I want to switch to a final issue, which is something you care a lot about, the Facebook files, so-called, revealing that the government actually wanted Facebook to change its whole algorithm system to focus on left-wing causes, including climate change, by the way. They thought there wasn't enough censorship going on. They thought there should be even more on climate change. And Democrat Senator Chris Coons talked to that point in congressional hearings back in 2020. Roll tape.
I'd urge you to reconsider that because helping to disseminate climate denialism, in my view, further facilitates and accelerates one of the greatest existential threats to our world.
He actually wanted more censorship than what was going on. How do you deal with this?
Well, I think this came to light. The lawsuit that I filed, Missouri versus Biden, was the opening salvo here. And then you've got Twitter files, now Facebook files. And what's very clear, it's obvious, it's undeniable that government actors coerce these big tech giants to censor speech. That's un-American. It violates the First Amendment. One of the things we got to do is make sure this never happens again. That's why I filed the Censorship Accountability Act that allows Americans, citizens, to sue individual government actors, officials in the administrative state for violating their First Amendment rights. We cannot have this in this country, David, where people's speech is being silenced. And by the way, you combat speech you don't like with more speech,
right?
And you don't censor it. And so the playbook was set with COVID. They're moving on to climate alarmism now. And that if you don't parrot the regime's narrative, they're going to shut you down. We just talked about like Soviet-style tactics. Well, here we go again. So I think it's an important time for a republic to push back.
And frankly, it all connects with the Jack Smith indictment because that focuses on whether the president had the right to say it. Jack Smith kind of intuiting what was in the head of Donald Trump, whether he believed it was a liar. I mean, it's just craziness. Senator, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us here. Good to see you again.